Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the, it's 6 o'clock. Good evening. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission's special meeting. It's Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. The roll call, we have all my fellow commissioners are here, so we have a quorum. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So first item, item number 3, citizen comment period. We do have two citizens signed up. Mr. Scott Miller. Would you like to, you could go ahead and approach the podium. And you do have, okay, the button's pressed, so.
It's already on.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Miller, and I live at 9312 Berean Way here in Garden Ridge. And some of you may remember that I've opposed the development of the Rival in the past, and while I still don't believe that the City Council followed the city's master plan or the ordinances requiring them to, I do think that any development that goes forward should at least comply with the standards we have within our building codes. So this is just an opportunity to ensure that the Planning and Zoning Commission understands what my issues were with it. In my belief, contrary to the public statements that were made by the developer and city officials, I think the Revival's plans don't appear to comply with all the standards in City Ordinance 13. I believe that any aspects that are confirmed to be not in compliance must be addressed before the building permits are issued, and with further review, there may be other issues that I hadn't found. I just did a cursory review. I emailed the city manager back on the 10th of June and to discuss 3 issues, and then ultimately we did talk, and I shared with her my thoughts so that you were aware of them. The first is the refuse containers. What I saw in the drawings that were available, and this is again 2 or 3 months ago, I was unaware of this meeting until just very recently, but what I saw from the developer, they had several trash containers located out in the parking lot area between the building and the right-of-way. If you look at paragraph 2.06.02, para C2, it says that those must be located behind the building line and not in the side right-of-ways. The second issue is the building orientation. Any building that says within view of a public right-of-way shall either face the right-of-way or shall have a facade facing the right-of-way that is consistent with the character of the front facade. A stack of building containers, I'm not sure if y'all are able to, I'm unable to figure out really where the front of it is, if it's a U-shaped box configuration, if the front is where the stage will be, the front is where the back, anyway, wherever the front is, just ensuring that that front is consistent with what our city standards require for having a facade that faces the right-of-way that matches what the front is. And then lastly is the roof design standards. There is an issue about the pitches on roofs, and if they're flat roofs, that they must have a parapet. I didn't really know what a parapet was, but doing a little research, you find out that's where the corner is, where the wall comes up and the roof meets. In a shipping container, it's a 90-degree, I mean, if you don't put any other facade on it or a parapet, it's just a 90-degree angle. And our ordinance says you can't do that. And again, the drawings I saw were a couple of the containers just had a wire, lack of a better, a fence, some kind of retaining rope or something at the top, and there wasn't what I would call a parapet. And you can dig in further and find in the IBC, the International Building Codes, they describe parapets and what their requirements are. I think some of them are like 30 or 40 inches tall. In other words, it's like a screen or a wall around the top of the structure. So if those are required and if they're still continuing that way, I would just think before we approve additional, that's going to be in the agenda later, the specific use permits, that
Thank you.
we need to make sure that they're covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next, we have Mr. Christian Lajas. Okay, thank you. So we're moving to item 4 on the agenda. Our next item is item 4A, the approval of the minutes for August the 14th, 2024, the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting. It was included in your packet. Is there any comments or edits to the minutes? And if we don't have any comments or edits, do I have a motion for the approval?
I move that we approve the planning and zoning minutes for August 14th as submitted.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second. So with that, all in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Any nay? No. Minutes have been approved. Thank you. So moving on to item 4B, we have a petition by Eric Fisher for 2 specific use permit extensions for the Revival located at 19186 FM 2252 on a 3.107 acres zoned as community commercial district. B1 is so that we'll take it one item at a time. So item B1 is the Revival, is number 1, 062024, special use permit authorized for restaurant or cafeteria, bar/tavern to be allowed in an indoor-outdoor bar area serving beer, wine, and mixed drinks with inside and outside seating premises. This item is to discuss and make recommendations. So basically, just a little background on there. I'd like to turn this over to Ms. Nancy Kane. Can talk a little bit about the item for the extension.
Okay. In June 5th of 2024, the City Council approved 2 special use permits for the Revival. Special use permit number 1 was for the bar tavern area, and special use permit number 2 was for the outdoor commercial, amusement commercial outdoors to be allowed up to 4 pickleball courts. The city's zoning ordinance states that a special use permit shall automatically expire if a building permit is not issued and construction begun within 6 months of the granting of the SUP. The zoning ordinance further states the city council may authorize an extension beyond the 6 months upon recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So whatever recommendation, whatever the Planning and Zoning's recommendation may be will go to the City Council at their December council meeting. Okay. Mr. Fisher is asking for an additional 9 months extension to the SUPs. He has 6 months really is not a very long period of time in which construction plans can be adequately reviewed, building permits issued, and so we are approaching that 6-month period. The city engineer has the plans and is in the process of reviewing. Another reason that this extension is being asked for is connecting to our city's sewer system. They are going to have to more than likely obtain easements from private property owners to make that extension. And that can be a very time-consuming process. Our city engineer has also commented to me that he feels the 6 months expiration period that we have within our ordinance is really not an adequate amount of time for a development to submit their plans. And the plans are not only for construction, they also have to be reviewed by TxDOT, and then also how are they going to connect to our infrastructure. So the 6-month period will probably be reintroduced to Planning and Zoning and City Council for a change in our city's zoning ordinance in the future. Okay? Now, these SUP, what you're considering tonight only is the extension of the SUP for the Bar Tavern that has already been granted, and the extension for the outdoor commercial amusement, which has already been approved as well. And they are asking for a 9-month extension to that permit, to that SUP for each one of those SUPs. Okay? Any questions for me?
Yes, if I may, Chair. So
Yes.
my question is, if our ordinance currently says we can grant up to a 6-month extension, is that right, Nancy?
No,
No,
it's
beyond
silent.
6 months.
It's silent about how long that extension can be granted for.
Okay.
And they are asking for 9 months.
Okay.
My question is, are we talking about each one of these to run concurrently, or are we talking about separately?
Separately, please. We have them as separate agenda items. They're separate SUPs, but I thought it would be easier for me to combine them both as I
Yeah.
present it to council.
Yeah,
And my recommendation as city manager is that both SUPs be extended for the 9-month period that is being requested.
Dr. Miller, I just to clarify, Ms. Kane just wanted to talk about both items since they do relate to both SUP for the extension of 9 months. So but we do want to take up each item individually. We have, we do have the owner or the developer. I see you standing. Would you like to say a few or comment?
Yeah, Nancy hit the nail on the head there. She was, so just to recap, obviously, we've gone through the plating process, the pre-development stuff, handful of P&Z and council meetings, obviously been approved for the 2 specific use permits. And, going through the design process, discussing with TxDOT and the contractors. Obviously, we're to this point where we have submitted the plans for review. And now the extension itself, it doesn't talk about a specific time frame. So we, Nancy and I and the city engineer met to kind of talk about how long we should request. I mean, 3 months, 6 months, a year. So 9 months is obviously just kind of a shot in the dark. Now, we hope to not be doing this, longer than a few months. So we'll have, plenty of time to break ground. But for some reason, if, let's just say something happens, COVID happens, or another shuts down the world happens, Nancy mentioned we can still ask for another extension. There's not really any limit to that in the ordinance either. So 9 months was just a kind of a shot to say, well, this should be plenty of time to take care of everything. Obviously, we're very close to the finish line already, but we do want to give the city, TxDOT, adequate time to review and get back to us, and we can respond with comments. Everything was obviously designed to code, so in talking with Nancy and the city engineer and TxDOT, they have been looking at the plans already. We have been coordinating a lot of the design with them. So we are hopeful the review process would be fairly quick, but again, there's no structured time frame for that review process, and so that's why we're asking for the extension. With that being said, we hope that you extend it, and we can get it taken care of here in the next couple months.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Is there any questions or any additional comments from the
Chair
commission?
Jockman, one other. So he said it was a shot in the dark at 9 months. Nancy, why don't we just, I mean, if it's going to be a year and it'll be done within a year, why not go for a year instead of falling short and having to do another extension?
I basically asked Mr. Leahos if he felt 9 months was adequate. Did he want to ask for a longer period of time? And his choice was 9 months. So that is what they are requesting.
That takes care of this specific case. And what I'm wondering is, how do we get it done in the past, in that time frame? And you said you're coming back to us, probably have to come back to us because that's not enough time, doesn't seem like enough time now to get things done. Is that because of regulations, or is it because there was some contentiousness to the prior submission, or what? I mean, I'm almost feel the same way. It's like, why not just say a year, and we know we can get everybody done in a year?
Sure.
I'm not aware of any contention that
No, I think,
existed about this. They have, our prior ordinance did not really have a time frame for the expiration of a SUP. Our new ordinance does, and this is the first time we have exercised this option in our new ordinance.
right. Yeah, and to your point, Nancy, we had that discussion. This would be the first project within this new ordinance, so obviously it's the first extension request, and so it's kind of the first on this time frame with this size of project. So to answer your question, sir, there was never been expiration for a specific use permit prior to.
I will also add, this is going to be the first project that will be connecting to the sewer system,
Correct,
so. it's-
correct.
So, some challenges.
So that's another challenge that has played into this,
If
I believe.
you guys are making me question the 9 months, why not go for a year? So that's a great question. I hope kind of doing the design calculation in my head, review time, talking with Hank, talking with Nancy, I felt like 9 months was sufficient or plenty of time with maybe a couple months to spare even. But then kind of going back to Nancy and saying, well, what if something happens that we just do not foresee? We can go for another extension. Now, if we want to say, why not make it a year? Why not make it longer? I mean, we're all for that. I mean, as long as everyone's on the same page, I think 9 months is good, but if you guys feel like a year sounds better, I don't know, Nancy, is that even possible to change it at this point?
Is
or-
it possible?
My problem was
Okay.
with the optics.
Sure.
Okay? It sounded like it was a shot in the dark, and the developer was telling us how long we should make it. That's why I had a problem with it.
Got it.
Mr. Leahos, if y'all desire to extend it, ask for the extension for 12 months, you may.
May I consult real quick? Excuse me.
Well, while they're consulting, my comment is, and my perspective is that if we're treading new waters, if the precedent hasn't been set in the past, I don't think we ought to lean towards an unlimited option or extending the option 100% more or 150% more, a total of 250% more time than what was initially, an option. I think that we ought to maybe proceed more carefully, in addition to, as that process takes place, maybe have a monthly report of how things are going. So for example, extend a shorter amount of time and get a progress report each month to figure out how things are going on, and that can be used as historical data for the future.
So my comment to you, Darren, would be, while that makes a lot of good sense, the variable one of the main variables they mentioned, and Nancy brought this up, was the variable of having to work with property owners because of the water line that you're going to need.
Yes, sir. There is a public utility easement already in place
Yeah.
that we have an option to go through. And there's a second option that we'd like to work with the property owner to see if because they plan on developing that property as well. And so it would benefit them to maybe change their existing easement because it goes kind of right through where their property is. And so it limits them, so long story short, to go with a different option that benefits both properties made sense, and we're talking with that owner.
But with that variable, you have yet to talk to those property owners, or you've talked to those?
We are in discussions currently with them. Yes, sir.
And per your discussions, initially you felt like potentially 9 months was long enough.
Yes, sir.
But now, having rethought and listened to us, are you thinking that you need more time?
No, sir.
You think 9 months?
I think 9 months would be, okay, and so to your point, Mr. Bates, if we say, okay, 9 months is granted, I would still, the progress reports on how the review process is going would still be beneficial to the city, just to kind of, when the ordinance gets updated, depending on the size of the project, there can be a time frame associated with each project potentially, and that could be good data for future.
So, excuse me, are you saying then, per what Darren's comment was, Chair, can I continue? Okay. That you would come back to future Planning and Zoning Commission meetings to give us an update on where you're at?
No.
With your
No.
extension? No.
No, sir, I think it would be more of maybe Nancy and I kind of seeing where we are.
You go to Nancy.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yes.
Yeah, I think this is, I think we knew going into the revision of the ordinance that, we did a few months ago, we updated the Natural Features Overlay District ordinance. And so we knew that there's going to be some revisions moving forward as we start implementing the ordinance. So this is already another little revision that we're going to be looking at. And I think this is a good one to look at and see what is it, the proper time that we're going to need to give that. Is it going to be 9 months? Is it a year? And I think this is going to be a good exercise for us to look at and evaluate that time.
Chair, if I could comment? As far as the time frame, being a shot in the dark, having been a builder before, I know a lot of these things are not in their control. If things are being reviewed by other agencies, state agencies, local agencies, they are probably pushing them to get it done as fast as they can. But as far as the time frame, they may not have any control over the review process. And things like the refuse containers, parapet walls, and the design, those types of things are basically going to be fettered out in the building department plan review. That's the venue for that.
Right.
But that probably also adds to the time of the review and whatnot. So I can understand why, as far as requesting an extension, you want to have enough time, but there's no guarantee because they don't have control of the entity, and they can always come back in 9 months and ask for another extension.
Chair, if I may. So I guess my question is, maybe Nancy, you can expand on this, or I don't know, the city attorney, or maybe as a builder, why would the 6 months be set in the first place? Like, why would there be a timeline on it originally for a specific use permit?
It took us 4+ years to develop this ordinance. I don't recall actually the actual discussions on that time frame. I honestly don't.
Yeah, so I'm.
And this ordinance Chair Jackman is correct. There are going to be changes that are going to be necessary as we have different things that this ordinance addresses that come before us, and we are going to find that maybe some of the things may not be quite as easy to work with. Maybe we do need to revise something. It's a living document, and every situation is a little bit different.
No, I think that makes complete sense. So with that, there were some educated folks, experienced folks who put this ordinance together, and I'm certain that they networked and crosstalked with other cities and didn't just, reinvent the wheel, if you will. So I would think that there's some reason why there's a precedent set of 6 months as opposed to leaving it open-ended. And what comes to mind is some of the pushback that has come from the community, which as planning and zoning commissioners, we ought to consider. It's written as in our purpose in Ordinance 13 for Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's more of our mission to do that. In addition to, we're supposed to look at the master land use plan and make sure that things are congruent with the current aesthetics, characterization of Garden Ridge, and looking out for the overall opinion, if you will, of the citizens of Garden Ridge, which is what their master land use plan is. And I think that's why we're getting so much contention and resistance. So with that, I would think that there was probably some kind of timeline that was associated with a specific use permit so that things could be readdressed and looked at as far as, okay, what's going on? I would think that some people would think that this is almost goodness that's happening, that, okay, we're re-looking at things. I think that there's a dissenting opinion amongst citizens of Garden Ridge with even what City Council has approved. And I think that there's an incongruency there. So this might be one of the reasons why the specific use permit ought to be readdressed.
Commissioner Bates, but I hear what you're saying, but at this point, the way, since this is only for the extension of time, and we've already got confirmation from our city attorney, our city manager, and I think, did you want to, our city attorney want to say?
Yeah.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I apologize. Megan Santee, City Attorney. I was just going to add, in response back as far as the amount of due diligence and cross-referencing and preparation that went into these provisions. When we're talking about timeframes, a lot of times we are looking at some standard timeframes that meet the purposes y'all have identified of keeping a project on track, allowing a project to come back to before you and before council to ensure that it doesn't get lost, doesn't get delayed, and also to, I was thinking there's a difference between a new build versus a simple change in use. When you come in for an SUP, a lot of times you've already got an existing, and I'm not sure of the specifics on this one, I apologize, my first meeting, but that can also impact that total time frame. If I've already got a structure and I've already got an ongoing business, or if I've got a business coming in, I've got a tenant coming in, and we don't have to make a lot of changes or adjustments, that special use permit should be able to be put in, we should be able to be completing that in a shorter time frame than what it sounds like we've got here with some of these construction issues. But typically, when we've got a shorter time frame on a permit or that it is conditional, it is so that the project is coming back before us for additional review, not necessarily meaning that they haven't done in their due diligence to get it done timely, or that even the 6 months should have been sufficient time because of the broad scope of everything that's going to fall into this basket. So that's all I can offer in addition, since I was not here, but that's what I've utilized in the past when I've worked with other P&Zs and other cities on these types of triggers.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I think that makes sense. And with that, sounds like it's a historical step. Marissa, are you familiar of any kind of historic SUP, specific use permit that's been extended or anything, any discussion on it in the past? So we have, the major players in the room. So this is a precedent that we could be setting or would be setting for the future. And if it does need to be adjusted as Ma'am, I didn't catch your name as,
What's up? Megan Santee.
thank you, Ms. Santee. So that maybe in the future, this SUP would be adjusted, the SUP timeframe would be adjusted for a relook if it's a new build or if it's a pre-existing build. I think that makes sense. But if we just set the precedent of X amount of months, I think we ought to use caution instead of just open up the floodgates, if you will.
Okay.
Chair Jockman,
Yes.
if I could. And that is that you got to remember, Darren, that both of these specific use permits, we know they've been approved. All this is an extension to the original approval. So the fact that and Nancy brought that up, I mean, both of these have already been approved. We recommended approval to the city council, and the city council approved these two. So in that sense, Nancy, help me out here. I think all we're doing, Darren, is making an extension, as the chair said, to these two permits, and that's really all we're doing here. I understand it correctly.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Maloney. And so with that in mind, I'd like to, is there any other additional comments or from the commission? Oh, yes,
Can I
Mr.
say one
Fisher?
thing too, just maybe shed some light on it also? The 9 months added is actually added on to the original 6, so it is about 15. So if you're thinking a year from the start, like if you were moving forward, you could maybe do it a year and 9 months. But one thing to consider is not just us getting our stuff together and waiting on builders. So we've already submitted our plans. So within the 6 months we finished our design, met with TxDOT, we got all stuff, and we submitted to Nancy and the city engineer. The city engineer said he probably needs 20 days to review. Nancy's team might need a little bit longer, they're not sure because of other entities they have to check with, like we were talking about CPS. So a lot of that is we've already sent it in. If the city itself takes 5 months to get back to us and y'all come back to say, well, your SUP expired, well, it wasn't us doing it. Y'all could sit on anything and let it expire, and then anybody building anything can get back. So it's not so much that for our purpose too, it's to cover y'all as well, so you're not just grabbing a submitted plan, sitting on the timer, waiting for it to run out, and then kicking anything back to come get reviewed for a new one. So it's also time for the city engineer. So we already submitted it under the timeline. Now we're just in a waiting process, like you were saying, not on our own accord. So just wanted to put that in there as well.
Thank you. So, well, at this time, if there's no other further comments,
Yes, I'd like to make a recommendation that the Planning and Zoning Committee approve an extension for the revival number 1, 062024, specific use permit authorized for a restaurant or cafeteria, bar/tavern, to be allowed an indoor-outdoor bar area serving beer, wine, and mixed drinks with the inside and outside seating on the premises.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Did you specify the time period?
Oh, for the
Yes.
9 months?
Yes,
Oh,
please.
excuse me, thank you, Nancy.
Please.
That the extension be granted for a period of, we recommend that the extension be granted for a period of 9 months.
So with that clarification on item B111 for the special use permit number 1 for the revival, I do have a second.
I second it.
Second, Dr. Miller. With all, so with that, do I have a motion, with that, do I have the approval?
Do we have any discussion then? Discussion on the motion? Right?
Yeah?
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
can.
Okay.
Yes, you have a comment?
So I think it's worth expressing that it's not, that we're potentially setting a precedent, and it's nothing personal against, anybody in this room in particular, but I think it's just worth stating that it's wise to move forward with caution as we're treading new waters and such. So that's my discussion.
And I think the precedent, and I apologize, I just want to make sure, in case anyone's listening to this, that the precedent to me being set is limited because it is very fact specific and fact-based. And so y'all have been provided very specific facts. So if someone else comes in here next month and says, well, you gave an extension last meeting for 9 months, and they don't have same facts, same situation, and it's different information, I don't feel like this board is committed to give the exact same amount of time. I think it is allowed that discretion to give it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and ma'am, I appreciate that with the mentioning of facts, and as I look at facts, I do see some inconsistencies. So with the application for extension of the site plan that's included is the original one, which still has the food trucks on there, which weren't approved by the city council. That could be potentially misleading if both of these this board was cleared out and also city council was cleared out, and you're purely looking at the documents, it doesn't match with what's being requested. In addition to, Mr. Fisher and representatives of the revival have stated here at the podium when we met back in April of this year, and state, okay, we'll reference the Facebook site. So I had looked at the Facebook site, and August 15th, which is past when the specific use permit was granted by the city, their advertising on there still shows food trucks. In addition, even though the specific use permit was granted for restaurant, bar, alcohol on the premises, that's not on their advertisement. Talks about coffee, talks about retail, talks about ice cream, talks about barbershop. It does spell out food trucks, and there's a food truck on there, and there's also a trailer, not a truck, but a food trailer, I'll call it, on there. So I'm seeing inconsistency. So that's a concern, and I'm sure that's a concern also for the citizens of Garden Ridge who we're supposed to represent in this forum on a volunteer basis to make sure that that's expressed. So yes, I mean, I'm trying to look at the facts, and I'm not necessarily seeing them line up. And I think it's due diligence to bring up those facts in this forum.
Well, Commissioner Bates, we have appreciate the discussion. We have a motion for the approval or the recommendation for the approval. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
So further discussion, I'd like to mention that no matter how I vote tonight, it's not personal. That's all. Thank you.
So all in favor for the recommendation for the extension for the revival? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so motion passes for the recommendation to City Council. Okay, item 4B2 is also, I'll just read it real, and this is the revival number 2062024 special use permit authorized for the amusement commercial outdoors to be allowed for up to 4 pickleball courts on the premises. And so this is, and also just to clarify, this is also the extension for the special use permit number 2 for the pickleball courts on the premises, and same extension for the additional 9 months. And so I'll open it up to any, I think we've had a lengthy discussion on both items, so I'll like to have motion for this item.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of an extension for 9 months for revival number 2062024, specific use permit authorized for amusement commercial outdoors to be allowed up to 4 pickleball courts on the premises.
So I have,
I said 9 months, I think, didn't I?
yeah. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. So all in favor by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes for the recommendation to City Council for the special use permit for the revival. Special use permit number So, okay, moving on to, well, thank you, everyone, for the discussion. I'm moving on to item 4C, Garden Ridge Walkable Community Workshop Report Subcommittee Update. I'd like to turn this over to Commissioner Maloney, and if he has anything, any updates. I know I have a few updates.
Just a brief couple of comments regarding the Walkable Community Workshop Report. And that is to say that I appreciate, we broke this down into two pieces. One was the traffic bars, the stop bars at stop signs, and the other was the speed, or excuse me, the speed limit itself within primarily those areas within Garden Ridge Estates and those other areas where the speed limit is controlled by the speed of 30 miles an hour. So the Nancy and the city took on the responsibility to get these stop bars painted by October 30th, and those were done. And from my point of view, the feedback I'll give you is that they're working quite well. There's still a small percentage of those where I live in Garden Ridge Estates that do not stop, but for the most part, I've seen a significant number of people look at those stop bars and think twice and stop there. So appreciate that, because we have small children, dogs, people walking, babies in carriages, et cetera. The second item, Chief and I attended a meeting with Nancy and the Chief on the 16th, I believe it was, of July of this year. And the other item, the Chief of Police agreed that he would install a traffic analyzer, and I believe, my understanding was that it would be within Garden Ridge Estates so that we could get data on the speed, as it was the speed limit, and if there was excessive speed, we would find out and report back. So the analyzer still hasn't been installed, at least to my knowledge.
We have one analyzer,
Okay.
and it gets moved around the city in various locations.
Okay.
He's working on it, so it may take a little bit of time.
Okay, so that's the other item, and that's pretty much all I have to say, Chair.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Commissioner. I do want to it kind of ties into what City Council recently approved at their last City Council meeting on November, I'm sorry, where's my notes? November 6th, where they approved an ordinance, number 22, you could look it up. It's ordinance number 22-11-2024. It's an ordinance by City Council which is regulating the traffic on streets, roads, and highways within the city of Garden Ridge by establishing stop sign locations and placement of traffic control devices, establishing prima facie speed limits and placement of traffic control devices, establishing so it's all dealing to, I think it ties in well to Commissioner Maloney about the walkability and the safety in our city. And so it's an ordinance now that is in place, and I don't know if Nancy, you'd like to say anything about anything else or about that recent ordinance?
Well, that ordinance 22, does actually set the locations for our traffic control devices. It also defines where our no parking areas are, as well as fire lanes. And predominantly on this last amendment to the ordinance or revision, the fire lane on Waterwood in front of the club, that was adjusted somewhat. So we had to bring that a fire lane length change, and we had to put it into ordinance 22 so that it can be enforced.
Thank you. Is there any other items or anything else you'd like to report? I think
Just briefly, and that would be, if we could get an update to subcommittee, myself and Dr. Miller, on potentially when the traffic analyzer, because it was in July, when we had that meeting, this is November, potentially when the analyzer might be moved.
We'll see what I can find out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you? Okay. Okay. Moving on to, well, thank you for that report, and you made some good, it's more, I think, like we talked about maintenance, and I think the Public Works is doing a great job in getting those put in, those stop bars. Moving on to item 4D, items applicable to the planning and zoning discussed at City Council. Well, I just kind of mentioned that already regarding that ordinance 22. Just like to kind of already talked about it. That is all I had for any items at City Council. Is there anything that I missed? I know Dr. Miller, you usually, no, you're good. So our next item, I think we're good on that item. City Council meetings. Item E, ordinance number 210. It's where we every year the Planning and Zoning Commission elects a chair and vice chair for 1-year term. So that 1 year is already up. And so I'll open up to the floor discussion. I currently serve as chair, and Ms. Commissioner Diaz is vice chair. And I'd like to just say I'll let the commissioners know that I'd like to continue if that's something that you would like to. But I'll open up to the floor for any recommendations, or if there's any others that you like. And Commissioner Diaz as well, she had mentioned that she'd like to continue as vice chair. But I'll open it up to the floor, and this does not go to City Council. This is something that we as Planning Commission select, and it's a 1-year term.
I can open up some discussion. I'll promise not to take too much or talk about the master land use plan at this time. So I spoke earlier with Mr. Yakiman, and ma'am, I know that we talked before, Ms. Diaz, and I think that both of you bring quite a bit of experience, not just within the Planning and Zoning Commission for numerous years, but also with your background more or less related to planning and building and such. So I would be, I'm all for keeping you all on for another term. I think it's a wise choice for the commission here and also for the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Bates. Dr. Miller?
I was wondering, do you need a motion, or what do we do?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Okay.
Let's ask Nan.
Please, we need a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion that we retain the chair and vice chair that we've had for the last, it's a yearly appointment?
Yes.
Okay, that we've had for the last year, for another term of 1 year.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you again for your continued support and for us to continue on. All right. Our last item, item 5, is citizen comment period. Do we have any citizens that would like to speak?
Excuse me, Chair, we skipped over future agenda
Oh,
items.
I apologize. Thank you. Item F, future agenda items. I do want to talk about one item that I guess we've had it on a, continuous, is the walkability workshop. Is that okay to take that out so we don't, because I think we could, Nancy could just let us know and more on that analyzer, right?
I agree, as long as Nancy just, gives me an update, I mean, or the subcommittee chair, Dr. Miller as well, I'd be fine with that. I don't know that we need to continue to have a discussion about it.
Okay. So we won't have that on the next agenda. And is there any other, any input from the commissioners on any future agenda
I was
items?
wondering, under the headline of, planning and zoning, I'm trying to get some feedback, or what, are we gonna get any feedback about planning for the influx of traffic once the developments on our outer edges come to fruition, full tuition, because they're already there? Will we have a role? Is there anything for us to do to help the city to prepare for what could potentially be a very ugly process?
Are you asking for this to be a future agenda item, Dr. Miller, because it is not an agenda item for this evening?
Yes, I know. That's all right. Yes, that's
You want it
exactly.
future?
Yes.
Okay.
If appropriate.
Okay.
Any other future consideration or agenda items to maybe consider?
So I have one. Somewhat to duplicate what was expressed tonight with the request from the revival, my opinion on this matter has also been expressed to City Council during the related City Council meeting to it, not directly to said property or subject property, but just us as a Planning and Zoning Commission as a whole. We do have some newer members. I still consider myself somewhat of a fresh fish as I'm learning more about the commission, although I do have some time, but also gleaning from others' experience, and then also the history from Ms. Kane that has been passed on to us that will soon go away. But what I'm seeing is, and my concern is, I'll call it mission creep, for lack of a better term, maybe civilian side, but that's what I learned from the military, is that we kind of get away from our purpose, mission, and vision, and that's what I sense is happening. So when I was up here volunteering to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think it was Ms. Diaz, if I remember correctly, that somewhat grilled me, like, you got to do your homework, and that's what it's all about. You better know the ordinance 13, you better be all over it, you better drive around Garden Ridge and see what's going on, put eyes on things. And, that's kind of what I've done. For one, because you scared me, but for two, that's what we're supposed to do, right? And I'll say that somewhat have a calling to do this work, because we don't get paid to do it. I did hours of research, and I'm not going to get any more money out of it. So, so with that, I think it's important for us to, with the Texas Open Meetings that we're discussing these kinds of things, that if we're noticing any incongruencies, I'm looking at me too, even though I can't, that those things are highlighted and mentioned to make sure that there's clarity, there's transparency, and knowledge and understanding of what's going on. I could be off base, right? And that's just possible, right? We're human and we make mistakes. So I do, if it's required for a motion, I can provide a motion for a future agenda item that we talk about next time or the next time we meet. But
I think, I don't know, Nancy, I think it's,
I don't think it requires a
no,
motion.
it does not require a
It doesn't
motion.
require a motion.
It's just
Okay.
more of a suggestion.
Tell
and
us.
we could-
So specifically then, I recommend or highly recommend to further discuss the Planning and Zoning Commission purpose and mission and any potential misinterpretations or inconsistencies on our Planning and Zoning Commission. Additionally, discuss the master land use plan vision and goals related to agenda items of recent times, maybe past 12 months, that relate to specifically the PDF pages in our master land use plan 14, 37, 41, 43, 48, 49, 63, 74, 101, and 103. And I'd be happy to provide a presentation and help guide discussion at our next meeting.
Thank you for that input. I think we could probably maybe, we'll see, talk to Nancy, and, thanks for your input. Maybe we'll take it in chunks and see see how we structure it.
Yeah, because I guess if it's more than an hour, I got to buy dinner for everybody. Is that how it goes?
But, okay. Okay, well, moving on to item F2. Our next meeting for the planning and zoning will be December 11th, here 2024, 6 p.m. here at the City Hall. At this time, it's 6:56. Oh, no, I'm skipping that. Thank you, Ken. Item 5. Sorry, I was going to adjournment. Item 5 is citizen comment period. Is there any citizens to speak?
Congratulations on y'all's new term. I know y'all can't answer, but I was just going to give some clarification on a couple of things, just in case anyone's listening and recording. So on the sub that we just looked at, we didn't go and change it, add the food trucks in, since it was an extension. It was already on the original sub, so that's why the food trucks were still there. So if you were looking at the papers and saw them, it's an extension of that one, which is why they're there. We're not trying to sneak them in. And on the Facebook page, glad you're visiting it, there's not a lot that's been updated because everything's going on right now is underground, utilities, water, not real exciting for an average viewer to look at. And we haven't taken off food trucks on that because we were turned down for the food truck park part of this up. Food trucks are allowed in Garden Ridge, as y'all all know if you've ever had any event here or gone to the park. So we can have food trucks from time to time on the facility without any permits. I actually called after we were turned down for the park and asked Nancy what the permit process was for a business just to have a food truck, and the city does not have one. So from time to time, if we want to have food trucks out there without the food truck park, we can do it just like any other business did. So that's why we haven't taken it off the Facebook page. So just letting people know that's the reasons for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens that'd like to come up and speak? Okay. All right, so now the adjournment, it's 6:57, and I'll call adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And happy Thanksgiving, yes, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. That was really good. Thinking the same thing. It's,